Hello and welcome to On Preaching, a podcast of reflections and homilies from the voices of St. John Chrysostom Parish. Today, Father Brian Zumbrum reflects on Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 to 20, the Gospel reading for Sunday, August 27th, 2023.
So one of the exercises I've always enjoyed as a teacher is asking students to answer what is a very simple prompt. In 2 paragraphs, answer, "Who am I?" And inevitably, every year, this assignment becomes the most stressful for the students of the entire semester. Because the truth is, when you begin to try to answer this question, it gets really difficult. Do you just start listing the qualities that you associate with yourself? How about all the roles or relationships that you fill? Do you capture the things that bring you joy or that are your passion? Or do you just simply run down all your accomplishments? How do you answer the question, "Who am I?" And then what about the world and its role in this? How does the world answer that question for you? How does it shape your own answer? And if your image of yourself is in conflict with the world, who's right? Who gets to decide who you really are? It's not easy, is it? Attempting to answer 3 words. And yet, every day, we are invited to answer that question. Who am I? And how do I claim who I am in the face of a world that will always attempt to define us for ourselves, to tell us who we are? I think it's why I always think of my students whenever I hear this gospel. Because we realize in Jesus' question that this is not a new topic that had been discussed among the disciples. Everyone, it seems, was trying to answer this question about and for Jesus. Who is this man? And none of the answers are bad per se. We could all do worse than to be compared to Elijah or Jeremiah. It's not that they're bad, they're just incomplete. Even Peter, who in this gospel comes out looking really good, that he got this 100%. Spoiler alert, 2 lines later, he's called Satan because he gets it all wrong. It seems that even though he got the words right, he didn't actually understand what they meant and therefore totally misjudged who Jesus is. And maybe that's the point. Maybe this gospel is meant as a cautionary tale to each of us when it comes to answering the question of who Jesus is. Because maybe all of our definitions, all of our categories, all the ways we understand Christ, all the answers we have gleaned over a lifetime of who he was and who he is, what he said, what he did, and why he said and did it, maybe all of them are necessarily incomplete. And maybe that is the truth of faith, that humility challenges us to not assume that we will ever completely know or understand the God we believe in or the Christ that we follow. And even harder to admit is that in all of our answers to the question, there's always a possibility that we're just wrong, that we have missed the mark, that our answer is incomplete. It is so easy, my friends, as we answer this question, to simply provide an answer that makes Christ into who we want him to be, not who he actually is. We simply project onto Christ all that we want him to be. And we have an amazing capacity to dismiss or rewrite or ignore the parts of him that challenge that image we've created. And if we're not careful, it's really easy to reduce Christ to someone who ends up looking a lot like us, who likes the same things and dislikes the same things, who magically shares all of our same fears and prejudices and hatreds as we do. A Christ who always seems to share our opinions and has our same views on every moral and political issue of our day. That's not Christ, my friends. That's just us, blown up and projected and nailed to a cross. But there is another way, which is the way of true discipleship, which is constantly returning again and again to the feet of the Christ we seek to know and understand and love, treating it like a bottomless well, that every time we drop in our bucket, we are getting new life-giving water that's always a little different from what we captured the last time we drank. And in that process of allowing ourselves to learn and listen from the God who is ever ancient and ever new, we realize that that same Christ is challenging us in our own answer of who we are. And just like Peter, we can allow ourselves to be remade, renamed into who we are always destined to be, so that each of us, without hesitation, when asked the question, "Who are we?" can answer it with simplicity, honesty, and integrity. I am a child of God, and it is within me and upon me that God continues to build his kingdom. What an inheritance. What a gift. May God be praised.
Unpreachy is a production of St. John Chrysostom Parish in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. Visit us at sjcparish.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. This podcast was produced by Brendan Lorden with music by Skytoes on Upbeat. Thanks for listening. Be well.